together, get through whatever. For worse or better, when the lights go down, you and me together, there's nothing better. It's now or never. Make it through somehow. Make it through somehow.
Hey, bestie.
What's up, sis? You're tuned into Big Sis Besties Podcast. Back again with another episode of BSB and its hostesses with the mostesses. Due to the intensity of our last episode, we gon' keep it light but still lit. On today's episode, we'll be discussing turning 30 versus being 30, Alyssa turning 30, I've already turned 30, the early 20s struggle, the girl we needed as a teenager, and growing up as a millennial.
All right. So I guess I'll start with getting into it. You know, I am 29. It's the last year of my 20s. And I feel like a lot of my friends right now are in that age group where they're either young 30s or late 20s, really kind of transitioning from our 20s to our 30s. And I think it's such an interesting point in your life because I've always had this perspective of aging as, you know, aging is a blessing. And I always try to remind myself that, you know, we are grateful to get older. I think a lot of the women my age have almost this complex or like this kind of like midlife crisis, I'll say, of, you know, like, oh my God, I'm getting so old. Oh, I'm going to be 30. There's this like idea or this career path or this, you know, these expectations that you're supposed to, you know, oh, when am I supposed to start a family? When am I supposed to, you know, settle down? When am I supposed to, you know, reach this career goal? And I just feel like while those are all concerns that we have at this age, I feel like, you know, I'm excited about my 30s. I'm excited for a new decade. I feel like the older I get, the more confident I am about who I am as a person. You know, when I was young and in my early 20s, my self-identity, my self-esteem was very, like, low compared to who I am now. And I think as you get older and you get more comfortable with yourself, it's, you know, it's a blessing. It feels good to not have to worry about other people's opinions so much. So I'm excited about my 30s and excited, you know, to see the end of my 20s because that they were rough. It was an interesting time. I'm ready to put that behind me and excited for a new chapter. How do you feel about this new chapter of your 30s?
I was absolutely excited for my 30s until COVID came. Mm-hmm. Around the time you are now is when COVID was starting. The pandemic was beginning. A lot of things just boom, one after the other kind of were falling apart. Mm-hmm. And I actually started my spiritual journey right before I turned 30. Mm. So, of course, it's a never-ending journey, but I had a very rough experience transitioning into 30. They were all things that were out of my control, of course. Mm-hmm. COVID, this thing, that thing, whatever thing may have happened. So it was definitely hard for me in my 30s with everything that was going on. So unfortunately, it was a difficult time.
Yeah. Yeah, your actual birthday, like your 30th birthday was kind of crazy. Like, you know, just plans falling through and, you know, like drama happening and all that. So, I mean, I get that.
So, right before we were supposed to go to a music festival in Atlanta, it got canceled due to a hurricane.
The day before.
We already had plans to go down to Atlanta for 3 days, a whole festival, clothes packed, Airbnb ready, everything a go. And it was canceled. My mom was flying from Florida, so it was just a damper on my birthday. Not a fun way to start 30. So many disappointments, but you know what? I got through it, and it's a thing of the past, and it is what it is.
Yeah, I do feel like they kind of set the tone, though, for that kind of year for you. And also, like you were saying about COVID, I think the whole process of COVID being a couple years, 2 to 3 years, I feel like everybody kind of lost a couple years in that. I really feel for, younger kids, like, like my brother, like he graduated in 2020. So from like 18 to 21, it was just like a blip, like just closed your eyes and opened them for you 28 to 30. It was just a weird couple of years.
But I will say the positive thing about COVID was I was dying to get out of the bartending serving restaurant industry. And with the unemployment and then getting the work from home job, I was blessed to have had that experience. And it really started the upward hill of my 30s. So even though I went through those things, a beautiful thing came from it.
Yeah. It really transitioned your whole career. Because, I mean, you really were... I had been in the service industry on and off for like many years, but you were kind of like only in it for those last couple years. And then right at COVID, you were like, I'm kind of over it anyway.
I'm out.
And then the service industry honestly didn't recover for a while after that. But it was the perfect segue for you to get out of it.
Yeah, they tried to want me to do to-goes. I'm a bartender. I'm not about to do to-goes. I'm going to file unemployment and I'm going to get another job. And that's exactly what I did. And it really was manifesting, speaking it out there. I want to get out of this. I want to get out of this. And it all really came to fruition because I was able to get back into customer service, but not waiting on tables or making someone's drink and hoping they tip. That is not the life I wanted to live, but it served me for what I needed it that time, that 4 or 5 years I did it.
For sure.
So it is what it is, honey. Now I'm 30, flirty, and thriving, and I ain't looking back.
Yeah. You also have so much more career stability now, post that, and I think I think you're just meant to work from home. You're like one of those people that working from home for you in the beginning was like such a blessing for you. It was just what you needed at that time. And your job now is kind of hybrid. So, unfortunately you do have to go back into the office. Yeah. That sucks. But I think it's great though that you did have that opportunity.
I love the opportunity, but I got too comfortable with being an introvert. I got very recluse. I wasn't going out much. Yeah. I was tired of being on that phone, and it was just
also from COVID too.
Yeah,
that's also like side effects from COVID. I mean, I have friends that did not go out for like 2 years at all. Barely saw them. And I will say my experience then, like in 2020. So I was about 25, 26, and I worked in the beauty industry. I worked at a med spa. So when we shut down, we were shut down. And when we opened back up, we were full swing. Everybody was ready to come get something done. And obviously, we had health precautions and stuff like that. But I was fully into work. And when we got back into work, it was the busiest I'd ever been. And I mean, blessing and a curse, I was definitely overworked. I was coming in early. I was staying late for honestly a couple years. And I mean, I made some good money during that time. Once we kind of recovered, everybody kind of recovered financially. But the economy was crazy because, people were getting their stimmies. People were out doing their self-care, trying to recover and refocus on themselves post-COVID. And, now we're a couple years later. I have my own business. And the economy is different. Inflation is crazy. It definitely feels like a big goal of mine was to branch out on my own eventually, but the timing is, just interesting, like how it's all unfolded.
And I want to bring it back to our first episode where you were talking about your hit of just having 1 year with your business. And I just wanted to piggyback off of that and say how proud I am of you for sticking it through all of those, side jobs, those jobs you knew you weren't going to end up with. You said you wanted to stay there however many years, and you really thugged it out. And you took that leap of faith, and I'm so proud of you for doing that. And I have seen you through each phase, each job,
Yeah.
and I saw how spread thin you were, and I saw how they mistreated you, and you brought so much business to them, you know. So I do want to commend you on being fearless and doing what you needed to do to start your own business.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think that's a big testament of like just that growth period because, you know, when I was younger, that could have been a goal for me, but I don't think I would have had the self-confidence, or I don't think I would have had that, like you said, fearlessness, that leap of faith to jump and do that when I was a little bit younger. I think it happened when it needed to happen, and I'm glad that it did. My goals have evolved as I've evolved, and the person I was in my early 20s when I became an esthetician versus who I am now in my late 20s becoming, you know, a business owner, you know, it has developed. And I'm also very proud of you too because you are the kind of person who sets a goal and does it. You know, when I met you, girl, we were struggling.
Girl.
We didn't really have a clue of where, you know, our path was going to lead. I think if I could tell myself now to that younger person, if I could be talking to her face to face, I would, you know, say, you know, the same things you just said. Like, it's gonna work out. You're gonna have to stick through these things, but it's gonna be worth it. And I mean, it is now, but man, what a tough ride. The 20s are all about growth and being flexible and evolving and going through some tough times for some better times. And I think it gets better.
Oh, it definitely gets better, but being in it is horrible. It's scary. You're still figuring out what person you are and who you want to be. Like you said, we had no clue. I had wanted to be so many different things, but it changed as I got older. Of course, the financial aspect of I should have been smarter. I was at home. I wasn't saving the way I should. I was being very frivolous.
Yeah.
And moving between states, trying to figure out where I fit. Not to mention, again, my spiritual journey beginning. And that was at 28 when we went to music festival. It just kind of was like, something's got to change. I can't continue to do the same things. Insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Something needed to change. And it really was up from there, honestly, once I got my head in the game. It was up.
Yeah. I think that's also been a beautiful journey to see within you. I think that's going to be a fun episode where we talk about that. I mean, we have a whole episode on finances and financial struggle, so we'll get deeper into that. And we also have a whole episode on our spiritual journey in that aspect of our life. But I think this one is really just about the time period and growth from 20 to 30. I think the way this is how I've always had my kind of outlook on life. You know, if you were to look at the average lifespan from, like, let's say 0 to 100, that's not average, a little above average, but let's say 0 to 10, I think you're literally just figuring out your faculties. You're becoming a person, you know, a child learning how to walk, talk, go to school, socialize, all that stuff. That's to only be expected to learn and basically just function. From 10 to 20, that's where you really start to develop a personality trait, where you start to make friendships, you know, like becoming a preteen, a teenager, all that. From 20 to 30, I really think is the first time in our lives that we as people really truly get a deeper sense of self, have spiritual awakening. Because I mean, you can grow up in the church, but that doesn't mean necessarily that you have formed new opinions on your own without them being taught to you.
And that's exactly where I was with it. I grew up Italian Catholic, but the older I got, the more my family strayed away from the church. Not necessarily God, but the church. And I just grew up with different beliefs the more I got older, and they couldn't push it on me anymore. You start making your own decisions. You start knowing really like, oh, this is what happens when I do this.
Yeah.
And it really does set you up for your 30s because now, oh, I'm woke.
Yeah.
You can't pull no wool over my eyes. I'm doing the research because we weren't taught it, because our parents weren't taught it.
Right.
So this is where we stop that and we teach our children what we never got taught.
Right. And yeah, I think like that doesn't just apply to the spiritual aspect, but also you know, breaking generational curses, recognizing those aspects of your personality. I think, you know, in our 20s we develop personality traits. In our 30s we decide if we want to keep them, and we do the work to throw them out or not. All the parts of us that we don't like, we have that ability to learn as adults, to grow, to gather new information and new traits, and get rid of old information and traits that don't serve us anymore.
And sometimes you keep those traits, but you modify them because you learn how to do them easier. You learn how to do them better. They say 10,000 hours of anything, you're a pro, a
An
professional.
expert, yeah.
Yep. So I've been alive more than 10,000 hours, but I still don't feel like it though. Honey, I'm still learning.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's part of it. I think, you know, it's always a learning journey. And, you know, I find a lot of times with, you know, hindsight being 2020 and thinking about the younger versions of myself, I find that a lot too in my modern day relationship. Like in this present day, I think, oh man, like I wish that I had met my partner before, you know, my more traumatic last relationship in my early 20s. What if I would have met him then? I wouldn't have been so jaded.
But what if
I
you
wouldn't have
weren't
been,
ready for him?
I wouldn't have been. And we say that.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
that's
Like,
so that's
I
so true. We say that to each other all the time. Like he even says that he's like, I wouldn't have treated you right. I wouldn't have been the person you needed today, and I wouldn't have been the person that, you know, he needed, or vice versa. It's just like these things that we went through that were unfortunate are things that we had to go through to get to where we are now. But yeah, no, I think about that younger girl a lot. I think about the younger version of myself who needed more love, what I would have said to her, the things that she didn't see as positive examples for relationships or whatever. And I wish I could have told her some things, you know, gave her some, you know, dropped some wisdom on her, giving her that attention she craved or the validation she needed. And I mean, you know, shoot, in hindsight, everybody, I'm sure, wishes that they could have did that. But I think that's truly growing up and having that retrospective outlook is essential for the next chapter.
I often look back at who I needed when I was a teenager, and I unfortunately missed out on being that when we lost my sister. I just knew I was going to show her the right way. I just knew I was going to have my own mini me, but a amplified version. And I have been fortunate enough to now provide that to my cousins, my friends, my friends' friends, whoever needs me to be big sis, I'm there. But it was not the same as what I had planned in my head.
Yeah.
So I would say I needed who I am now as a teenager, which I did have in my mother, but as we discussed in episode 1, you need that relationship that is not with your parent. And I am thankful that I am who I am today. And I look forward to being able to provide my children the things that I wasn't provided due to lack of knowledge.
I think that's a good goal. I think, you know, you can only use your perspective of growing up, you know, to impact those that you're trying to teach and trying to guide. I think growing up for us was definitely different from like the kids growing up nowadays. I think it's going to be very different for you, like trying to raise somebody from that perspective as well. Because I mean, for us, like growing up, like we didn't have social media the way that kids do now. We went through some crazy things very young. I mean, like like the '08 crash, and then now seeing the economy with inflation, it's just like, I think growing up as a millennial, we've seen so many big economic shifts, so many tragedies, you know, like 9/11, things that kids now see so much on the news or on social media, and they almost get desensitized to it in a way. But I think it's like, you know, a different perspective from our lens because we saw so much of that as it was happening in real time.
I mean, we're the last generation of the no cell phones. I remember I got my first cell phone in 5th grade only for communication after school because we didn't have a house phone anymore. So once we got rid of the house phone, it really
Flip
was,
phones.
yeah, it was Samsung flip phone with a sun holographic in the screen, okay?
And
And
minutes.
right, watching my mother achieve the American dream of becoming a homeowner in my teenage years, it's becoming further and further to grip, to obtain. So I just made my own dreams and I'm going at my own pace and I'll have children when I decide it's right and I'll buy a home if I decide it's right, which, now I'm in a different phase of my life. I have a partner. We're serious. We're wanting to build our life together. So I'm thinking about things in a different aspect and
Right.
the American dream is not the only dream. That's the
Right.
dream they fed us growing up. And now the millennials are, again, not letting the government blindside us
Right.
with the tales that they're telling us.
Yeah.
And it has definitely been interesting growing up in the 2000s.
Yeah, I do think it was an interesting generation to grow up in, and like watching the rise of cell phones and the internet, and like you said, untraditional. I think millennials definitely started to break that mold. I think Gen Z is even further so doing that with just like not accepting the traditional career path and retiring by a certain age, working for quote unquote the man or whatever. So I think getting older is all about forging your own path. And I think comparison is the thief of joy. Comparing like people's most joyous, successful moments online with your reality is not healthy and it's not real. I think us navigating that now as this generation who watched the internet develop versus this younger generation who's only ever had it is a big factor as well. I think my goal for my 30s is definitely to become less addicted to the phone screen, less addicted to the algorithms, because I mean we all are addicted to it. It's definitely more prevalent, I think, in the younger generations, but in the future I definitely want to like wean off of that.
Well, it's kind of difficult when now we're having to promote our brand. It's almost like I'm not even on my personal profile anymore.
Yeah.
We're focused on promoting ourselves. And while we're growing our brand, we want to thank everyone for all of the support. We also want to know your experiences and perspectives about the topics that we talk about. We want you all to participate in the polls, in any questions, commenting on our posts. We want this to be an interactive platform, and we want to get to know our audience and who is supporting Big Sis Besties.
All right, sis. Do you want to talk about hits and misses for the week?
We absolutely can. This week, my hit and miss are intertwined. It has been a very long week. I was blessed to be included in not only a prom, junior prom, but I was also the co-host of my goddaughter's 3rd birthday this past weekend.
Yeah.
So it was a very, very eventful,
Busy day.
grand, busy day, both in the same day.
Oh,
Yep.
so
So
sweet,
it
though,
was
so
nice.
precious.
Yeah, to see them grow. Zoe's junior prom, the day after she was born, I was at the hospital with her. Her and Addison were very close in age. They
She
were
looked
besties.
so beautiful. You
Thank
did
you.
so good on her makeup.
Thank you. I
Like
did her
saw
hair,
her.
too.
Oh my god, she looks so gorgeous.
I know.
I almost cried a little bit.
Me too, to see how
she's
much
so
she's
big.
grown,
Yeah.
right?
Oh my god.
And then Phoenix, my goddaughter, I literally met her 3 days after she was born, the first godchild I didn't watch enter this world. And she's 3 whole years old now. So
Yeah, I know,
it was
that's crazy.
it was a great day, but it was so tired. I came home and I literally crashed. So
That was her first party I hadn't been to yet.
I know, I
So
know.
had plans
You
up.
were missed.
I know.
But what
I missed
about
it,
you?
too.
What about you?
Yeah, okay, so my hits and misses. I will say my hit was that day too. We were supposed to go out on the lake on the boat, but it was supposed to thunderstorm. So we ended up canceling the day before just so we, could get our money back. But it didn't thunderstorm at all, so that's fun. But, we just all hung out. We had a great brunch. We went and got tapas, brunched all day, day drinking, hung out with Kim. She just got back from New York, for her birthday week. So we all got to hang out together and catch up, and that was really fun. That was a great day. I will say my miss that week was the weekend before. I also had plans and stuff. We had Jonathan's little cousin's birthday party by the pool, and then we were supposed to go to Layla's home housewarming thing later that day, and I was sick as a dog, dude. That flu kicked my butt. I thought my head was gonna explode. I don't know what was wrong with me. I was out for 3 days, but I think that was just my body telling me that I needed some rest.
Definitely.
Because I slept for 48 hours straight.
Mm-hmm.
So
listen to your body.
yeah, but at least I wasn't sick for the past weekend, and hopefully I'm not gonna be sick anymore this spring because I'm over it. So that was my miss. We'd love to hear your hits and misses, besties, and also if you guys have any stories to share or questions to ask about the upcoming topics in the next episode, send them in. We want to hear them. On next week's episode, we'll be discussing our friendship of over a decade and maintaining that, how we maintain any healthy relationship or friendship, how relationships change as we age, losing friends as we get older, making new friends as adults, and the relationship we have with our siblings now as adults. And we look forward to seeing you guys next episode. We hope you have a great rest of your week. Until next time.
All right, sis. Go like, follow, and share both our Facebook and Instagram at Big Sis Besties Podcast. Don't forget to turn on all notifications so you don't miss any tea. All links are in the description.
Please be sure to email any questions or inquiries to bigsisbestiespodcast@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show as much as we hope you did, please give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Facebook. Tune in every other Friday for the latest episodes.
Thank you all for joining us this week on Big Sis Besties. It's been real.